Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. I hope you're all doing well. Now today I've got a very special guest. I'm joined by sports presenter Nicole Holliday. Thank you so much for coming on my channel today. It's really lovely to have you on. How are you doing?
I'm good. Thank you for having me. It's an absolute pleasure. Yeah, I'm good. I was just saying to you off record, off record, like we're in a law firm.
Yeah, you should say off
It's
air,
just-
but
yeah, off record. Am I okay? It's a Monday morning. It's been a bit of a manic Monday morning, but I'm doing well. How are you? You good?
I'm really good. I'm just really happy to have you on here because I
Oh,
always love the stuff you do, and it's just great for me as a woman to see other women out there presenting, and it's just a pleasure to have you on. And I did want to talk a bit about before you got into presenting, like growing up for you. Was it always like your dream to be a presenter? Like, was it your dream job, or did you have other jobs you wanted to do?
so I actually went to the Brit School, which is like a music performing school, and I did musical theatre there. So I wanted to do musical theatre, be in shows and all that jazz. Um, and then when I left Brit School when I was 18, so I didn't go to university. I left Brit at 18, and at that point I was like, "Oh, this isn't what I want to do, actually." I loved watching shows, but you know what's so weird for me, because now what I do is literally like kind of performing. It's talking in front of people, cameras and everything. So what I'm about to say sounds really strange, but I hated the performing side of musical theatre. So I loved like the songs and everything. But when it came to me being on the stage, I sounded like a sheep because I was so nervous. My voice would be like literally horrendous. And I hated performing. But then now obviously I do that as a presenter. But I think the difference is as a presenter, you're just talking, you're being yourself.
Yeah.
Whereas when it comes to performing, whether it's singing, dancing, whatever, because you've got like a talent, I don't know. I know it sounds really strange, but I just
I
felt
get
more
what you mean,
pressure,
yeah.
like to be really good. I'm like, what if my voice breaks? What if, whereas what I do every day in my presenting job is just me just talking. Um, yeah. So I quickly realized didn't want to do musical theatre. Then I was like, what do I do? I don't have a degree. I don't have anything. Um, I was actually working in a post-production company and I was working on weekends, like 8 a.m. till 8 p.m. on Saturdays and Sundays. And so, like, what's on? It was really boring. So I was just like the receptionist, basically, but no one was ever there on a weekend. So what's on all weekend? Football. And all my family had always been big football fans, and I'd watched quite a lot of football growing up. Um, but just having that much time to just watch all the games, I just got more and more into it. This is years and years ago. And then I was kind of like, okay, I like this. And I want to be a presenter. At that point, I realized I like talking. And I was like, God, I'm not good at much. What am I good at? Talking to people. So I'd started to think, I think I want to be a presenter, but how does one get into it? And then I started to get more and more into football. And so then, yeah, there was like, I suppose, a moment of like, ding, hang on, this could work. But yeah, no, it was kind of, I'd say, my late teens that I first thought, "Ooh, presenting could be my vibe."
Yeah, and didn't you also start a YouTube channel as well to kind of help that?
Yeah, that's good research. That's literally how I got found by Arsenal. So when I was at this production company working on the weekends, watching all the football, I thought, right, so I had no social media following anything at all. But I'd started like tweeting about Arsenal and tweeting about the games a bit. And, I was getting people replying and having little conversations with people. And I was like, oh, okay, maybe, because at this point there weren't a ton of women
Yeah.
um, doing it. There were your Gabby Logans, Claire Baldings, but there weren't that many other people coming through. So I wasn't sure how I would be received, I suppose, on Twitter and stuff talking about football. But it was, I was having some really nice chats with people and people were quite engaged in what I was having
Yeah.
to say. I say people, I mean, it's probably like 25 people that actually followed me at the time. And then I just thought, you know what? I can sit here and be like, oh, I want to be a presenter, but like no one's just coming to me with jobs because that's just not really how life works. I need to take it into my own hands and take
Yeah.
control of my own future. So I thought, people are using YouTube. Let's make some YouTube videos about football, about Arsenal. So I went and bought a Mac, taught myself to edit. Again, just very like basic editing, but still. And then just made a couple of post-match Arsenal videos. I was terrified putting them up
Yeah.
because there's something so, as you all know, right? Like kind of exposing. And now, obviously, it's really normal, right? Everyone's
Yeah,
using
it's a lot more popular
YouTube,
now.
yeah, TikTok, whatever. But years and years ago, it wasn't as much of a thing. And so I remember I made my first video and I put it on like my Facebook because I used
Yeah.
Facebook a bit at the time. And you're putting it out there to like all your friends and family and people you went to school with, and you're basically going, hello, hello. I know this isn't what I've ever really done, but I've made a YouTube video. Please go and watch. And there's something so scary about doing
Yeah.
that, even more so to people you kind of know. I think you're worried about them judging you, or you're worried no one will watch it and you'll feel silly or whatever. So I found that really scary, and it's hard, like putting yourself out there, right? Um, but did that, made a few videos. They didn't get many views at all, at all. But there was a producer at the club at the time at Arsenal called Carl, and he was like head of media. And yeah, one morning I woke up and I had a direct message on Twitter from this guy, and he was saying, I'm a producer at Arsenal. I've seen some of your content. It would be great to chat. And I thought I was being catfished. Um,
Yeah,
Genuinely thought I
I
was being
get that.
catfished. Yeah, because to me, I'm
It
like, I
doesn't
have
feel
no
real,
social
yeah.
following. No, no social following. I've literally made, I think at this point, I would say about 4 or 5 videos. So barely any. Again, none had gone viral or anything like that. So I'm thinking, this can't be real. But I thought, I'll humour you, Carl. So sent him an email. Anyway, he then, no, I gave him my email and he emails me, and it's obviously like an Arsenal email address. And I was like, oh my God, this is a real human being. And then, yeah, went in for a meeting and then went in for the audition, and got the job. This was years ago. This is maybe 2016, I think.
Wow, yeah.
Gosh, I feel so old. So yeah, that was from literally from, and I always say I was so lucky because people make content all the time, and they're great and they do amazing videos. And again, mine was actually just really quite basic. So I was very lucky that I kind of got seen, or my videos got seen when there are so many things out there. But I guess on the flip side, because whenever I say that, lovely friends of mine will always be like, yeah, but you make your own luck as well. You put
Yeah.
yourself out there, you taught yourself to edit and all of that, which is true, right? You've got to put yourself out there and be proactive. And then sometimes it's just a case of like good timing and things like that, right? So yeah, but I was very lucky. Yeah.
I do love that because I think with YouTube, I feel like when you were talking about performing, like it's quite different because I suppose when you were doing YouTube, you were just talking to a camera and you felt like you could just be yourself because no one's really going to judge you. And for me, when I started YouTube, I did, I think I was about 15 and I just wanted to check with my mum, like, I'm thinking of doing a YouTube. Are you okay with me doing that? And she said,
Oh,
yeah. But I didn't tell them my channel for such a long time because it's sort of
really?
weird hearing your own voice back or watching, or if your family watch your videos. I just feel like it's just weird. So at the time
Completely.
at school, I obviously didn't tell anyone about it because I do think, I think YouTube is obviously more popular now, like you said, and a lot of people do it now. So if you say I'm doing YouTube videos, people will kind of get it. Because like for you back then, it probably felt a bit strange. Like people probably didn't understand why you're doing it. So I think it's just really interesting to see how it's grown, in my opinion. And I think for you, like you said, you do have to have a bit of luck as well. But I think you also have worked really hard to get there as well. And for me, when I watch you obviously present, you do have a lot of confidence. And I think when you're talking about something you love, you have a different type of confidence. Like for me, people might say you're confident, you seem like a confident person, but I just think I love talking about Arsenal, so that's why it might come across that way. But for
Yeah.
you, like with you presenting, do you think you're a confident person, or do you think as more videos you've done, you've had to, you've grown with it a bit?
I think it's a mixture. I think because I suppose my background helped in
Yeah,
terms of drama school, and I think leaving school at 16 to go to drama school. So the Brit school's in Croydon and I lived in Essex. So it was such a big commute for me every day. And it was like, it's a crazy school. It's amazing. But you've got everyone from all walks of life. Everyone is so unique and everyone embraces people and differences and stuff. It's a really magical place. And I think going there at such a young age, I was like, wow. And it really opens your eyes. And so I think that kind of helped with my confidence as a
yeah,
person. I think it's easy to compare yourself, isn't it? And you see what everyone else is doing, but everyone's only posting their best bits.
yeah,
So that can sometimes make you, I'll be doing lots of cool jobs. I might have then like a quieter week, and then I'll see other people, like my peers, posting stuff, and I'm like, oh God, I'm obviously like not that good because they're all working loads this week and I'm not. And
yeah,
and you can get so in your head about silly things like that. So I think fundamentally, if you're actually just quite confident and believe in your ability, then that massively helps. But yeah, it's like anything, right? The more you do it, the more confident you get. Like I'm confident. I think I'm confident at talking to people. So you
yeah,
could, if my friend took me to an event and I didn't know anyone, obviously at first I'd be like, oh, this is bloody awkward. But I'm quite happy to just chat to people.
yeah.
I don't find anything like that kind of scary. And so I've always been a bit like that, I think. But yeah, in terms of presenting, it's been over years of doing it more and more. And yeah, just getting more experience then kind of comes with confidence. And that's probably like yourself,
Yeah.
right? With your YouTube.
Yeah, I think the first time you do something, you're never going to be great at it.
God,
I
no.
think if say my first video I did, like I used to film it this way. Do you know the way you? And looking back, I just wouldn't ever do that now. I'd probably do that on a short or on a TikTok,
Yeah,
but
yeah, yeah, yeah.
like the first time, you're never going to be brilliant at it. And I think the more you do it, the more you'll pick up them skills. Because I think for me, like when I started, I just sort of did it as a hobby, like yourself. You wanted to just talk. Just it's nice to meet people and have your own space of talking about something that you love.
Mhm.
And I did want to ask you a bit about going live at Arsenal when you started working or on other shows, because I remember when I first went live, I went live with someone and I was really nervous because
Oh, yeah.
when I do pre-recorded videos, you can edit things out. You're comfortable making mistakes, and obviously I go live and I make mistakes, and it doesn't bother me because it's just life. People make mistakes. But for you, when you first went live, how did you find that? Because I suppose if you're working for someone, you kind of feel a bit of pressure about making mistakes.
Yeah, for sure. And it's so scary. Like the first time you do it, you're just thinking about everything that could happen. But actually, what you'd find, so I was quite lucky that Arsenal wasn't my first ever presenting job.
Yeah,
I had been doing, I was working on a show that at the time was called What's Up TV, and it was like a music entertainment show on Sky. But it started off, it was unpaid, but I was just like thrilled to,
yeah,
get some TV presenting experience. So I had done that for a little while, very infrequently. So I was still very inexperienced when I got the Arsenal job. But although that was a pre recorded show that we did, the director, Bob, he was brilliant. He always wanted us to do an interview as if it was live.
yeah,
So although we were pre recording, so if a crane dropped a brick next to us, we could stop and go, oh, that's bad. Let's pick up on that. He always wanted to film it, ideally in one take, because, and I always agreed, you know, like I think we were kind of talking about earlier, you want to do everything. Really, you want to ask the same thing. You want to say something once and get an organic reaction, right, from the person you're
yeah,
interviewing, or whatever. It's very hard to Oh, that's because before we started filming, I was banging on about I've got all this drilling going on, so I've had to film these same videos, football preview videos, like 10 times in a row. And it is hard to each time go, right, guys, I'm so excited for Arsenal, blah, blah, blah. And you've got to bring that energy, even if you're on
Yeah.
the 8th time, you've got to, keep doing it. So
You get
you were,
exhausted with it doing it so
yeah.
many
And then you're a
times.
bit like, and then you feel a bit silly, and then you've said it too many times, and all the words start to like merge into one. And, it's a lot better if you can, even if you've got the luxury of pre-record, if you can actually do it all as if it's live. So that was so helpful, that's always how we did that show, because when I got the Arsenal job, it was to host Facebook Live videos. And to be fair, they took a gamble with me because they knew I had no live experience. And the contract with Facebook was that the videos had to be a minimum of 10 minutes long, like obviously on a live stream. Which that's quite a lot of time to just talk by yourself, or, if you've got one of the players and maybe English isn't their first language, or
Yeah, it
they're
can
just
be
a bit
difficult.
shy, it can be difficult. And again, a lot of the players weren't used to going live and doing live things either at the time. So they worry as well. So then you've just got a bunch of like nervous people, doing a live broadcast. So yeah, they took a gamble with me. And I remember the first time I got to Emirates and we were doing a kind of pitch side thing. I think we had Lethal Bizzle on I was going to say the show. It wasn't a show, it was just a live stream. And I was really I was so nervous beforehand, but I've always been quite good at, even if a job I do, I get really nervous for in the run up to it, when I'm there and we are about to go live, I'm good. And then when
Yeah,
we
you're in your
start,
little moment and space of doing that,
yeah,
yeah.
100%. And that's exactly what never happened with musical theatre. I think that's the difference for me. I'd get on stage and I'd still be like, I'm hating every minute of it while singing. Whereas presenting, I might have
You're
those
enjoying it.
butterflies or nerves, but I'm
Yeah.
actually enjoying it when I'm doing it. But yeah, I remember being terrified. But when I was doing it, I was like, okay, cool, like this is all right. But you do worry, what if I don't know, what if I just have brain freeze? What if I drop an F bomb, even though I've never sworn before when I've
Yeah.
filmed? But what if it just comes out of my mouth and I can't help it? Like,
Yeah.
there's so many
Do
things,
you
like
know what
legit.
I find hard when I've been on people's channels and there has been times where they've asked me stuff and I'm thinking, they'll ask me like you've been linked to a certain player and I'm thinking I've no idea about that person and
Yeah,
I've just
yeah,
had to like go along with it and be like, yeah, they sound amazing. Like you won't know everything, and I think
100%.
it's good to learn off others. And I think for me, I think the more you do something like you said, you'll really be comfortable with it. Like you said, going live, you will make mistakes and that is normal. Like if you didn't, you wouldn't really learn anything. So
Oh my
I
gosh,
do
yeah.
think it's a normal thing and I don't think you should really worry about it.
Yeah,
And I did want to ask you a bit about, your job, because you have, at the moment you're working with Arsenal and you do get to interview some amazing players and people, legends
yeah,
of the club. I just want
yeah.
to know from your time, like who has been the best or your favourite person you've
Ooh.
interviewed or the most interesting?
Oh, you know who I haven't interviewed yet? And I will slightly, I think I'm quite chilled. I don't really
Mm.
give fangirl vibes to
Oh, I
like the
feel like I
players or
would.
anyone. But like obviously as part of my job, if I had to interview one of the players and I was like, oh my God, hello, that would be a bit awkward for
Yeah,
them as
it's made
well.
him feel a bit
And for the
weird.
content, yeah. But one person, Thierry Henry, I've not interviewed him yet. And I'm like, he's like on my bucket list. But Tony Adams, the first time I interviewed Tony Adams, it was actually before one of the North London derbies at Emirates years ago. And he rocked up in this like light blue corduroy suit situation because he dresses like
Yeah.
very wacky. And he was that was a moment where I was like, wow, because my mum at home, she queued up when he released his book to get it signed. So we've got his like biography at home with like his signature, like to Donna, la, la. And so that was quite like oh wow, like this is so cool. And he was amazing. A lot of the old school lot are just absolutely fantastic. They're so funny. And then now, because I've worked with Tony quite a lot, like whenever I see him, we've got so many pictures together now. There's a really funny one where it was at an Arsenal screening for the Man City game last season, and he's carrying me.
I
And we're just
saw
like,
that.
Yeah, and like that, I remember putting it in my family WhatsApp group, and my brothers were just like, "This is hilarious," because yeah, now when I see Tony Adams, we're like, "Oh my god, how are you?" It's almost like I've got a little mate, and you're like,
Yeah.
"That's insane!" Like you were like an icon when I was growing up. So, and he's just amazing and funny and has so many stories. Um, Loads of them are great though. Even Jorginho, I hadn't worked with him up until the past few weeks, and I've then done 3 shoots with him in the space of a few weeks. And he's brilliant, really funny, really lovely. You can tell that he's got that sort of leader quality to him, which you hear a lot of the players talk about. But it was really interesting seeing that, even just in like we were doing like fun shoots, but just in even that environment, you just seeing someone's personality and then their characteristics come through. Um, this lot are a really lovely bunch as well. Who I did love and always loved chatting to was Santi Cazorla. He was an absolute breath of fresh air. Um, just lovely. And so, one of those people that just always has a massive smile on their face. And you're like, how are you always so
Yeah,
happy?
it just makes you happy, doesn't it, when they're happy? It's lovely.
Infectious. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, there's loads of them that are just wicked. And I guess sometimes, and I was speaking to someone at Arsenal about this the other day actually, because I was like, it's quite easy to take it for granted, especially because I've been there. I wasn't there for a few years. So I'd left for a few years and then came back about a year and a half ago. Um, but it's quite easy to take it for granted when you're there so much. But then sometimes I sat pitchside for the Newcastle game, and I rarely get to literally sit pitchside with all the photographers, right? And I was like, wow, this is actually
Yeah, it's a lot
really
to take
cool.
in, really. It's so amazing, yeah.
Yeah, and it's one of those where, again, like, the luxury of my job and one of the really fun parts is getting to interview and meet loads of amazing people, right? So it kind of does slightly become the norm as anything like that would with anyone's job. If you're doing something really, really often, you're not going to be like every day, like, wow, wow. Um, so I think it can be easy to just not actually take a moment to think about it and think about how lucky you are as well, I suppose, in a lot of ways. Yeah, so it's cool. There's been a lot of moments that I think when I'm a bit older, if I have kids and grandkids, and like I'll make them be Arsenal fans.
Yeah.
Um, that I'll be like the cool mum being like, yeah, I met that player and I have
Yeah,
like
it's just
this.
a nice thing to look back on, isn't
Yeah,
it?
like memorabilia and all of that. Yeah.
I love that. And I know you mentioned that you'd love to interview Henri, but I thought if you could tell a few people, if there's someone that you would love to interview as well that you haven't yet. I know there's so many amazing people out there because but you have interviewed a lot of, incredible people, but is there like a few names that you probably think I'd love to interview them that you haven't yet?
Yeah, I think Arsenal-wise, Arsene Wenger, obviously. I remember I got to speak to him a couple of times when I first worked there, but very briefly. And I
Mhm.
remember once he was such like just had this presence, and I was in the corridor and he walked past and I was a bit like, and it was his birthday.
Yeah.
So I went, "Happy birthday, Arsene." And he was like, "Oh, thank you." And then afterwards I was like, "Was that weird from me? Was that a
I'd
bit
probably
because it was
embarrass
very
myself
abrupt."
by being too excited.
Well, I kind of just like he like just kind of walked past me, and then I decided it just kind of came out, which
Yeah.
was obviously like, I could have said a lot weirder things. It was his birthday, so I was factually correct. Um,
I'd
but I
probably out
remember,
say it and it wasn't his birthday.
yeah, yeah, literally. If I was like, "Merry Christmas," and he was like, "Nicole, it's June."
Yeah.
So yeah, it could have been weirder, but I just never got to properly interview him, so that would have been really cool. I actually got to chat to Mikel when he was a player. That makes me feel old. Stuff like that
Wow.
makes me feel old, although he's obviously older than me.
I've gotta
But
say
yeah,
about
Arsene
Arteta,
Wenger.
his hair has not changed since he's been at the
Oh
club.
my god! Like, what are his hair secrets? Because
And now I need to
it's
know to tell my dad
outstanding, and especially because you always see this with managers, don't you? Like, because it's such a stressful job, after a little while, their hair starts
Yeah.
receding or greying or whatever. Mikel, whatever shampoo and stuff he uses,
You need
gosh,
to tell
or
us.
those jeans are strong because it is, like, insane, isn't it?
It's just
Um,
not changed since he was a player,
no,
it's
No, literally, he's, like, not aged. But no, Arsene would be on the bucket list, and Henri, for sure. Like, I'd love to chat to Dennis Bergkamp. Freddie Ljungberg was always, like, I was obsessed with him when I was younger. It was the, Calvin Klein ads that he did. You're too young for that, but I did meet him and I've interviewed him, he's very sweet. But, yeah, I think peak would be Henri and Arsene Wenger, generally in football. I would really like to chat to Mourinho just because he's a character, isn't he?
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
yeah.
Do you know,
Uh,
growing up, I hated how good he was, but I just think he's very entertaining to listen to or to watch, so I think that would be great.
and I feel like you just wouldn't know what you'd get with him.
Yeah,
Like, he would either
yeah,
be, like, really cool and nice and
or
friendly, or he'd be
grumpy.
quite sarcastic, or, like, I don't know. Yeah, you'd be a bit
You
like,
don't know what to, yeah, it'd
I
be a
don't know what
hard
to
one
expect.
because you don't know what mood you'll be in.
Exactly, and he obviously thinks that he is, like, the best as well, so it'd just be a very interesting chat. But no, there's still so many people that I haven't interviewed or worked with that I would love to, but it's yeah, we're kind of getting through the bucket list slowly
Yeah,
but surely.
you're
But
ticking them off.
Henri is one where I think I would act like a little schoolgirl. I've walked past him as well quite a lot, and he actually was watching the match day show years ago once. He was outside the door and I could see him look through it, and you just heard him go, "Oh." And I was like, but we were live, but I wasn't live at that point. So we had two little sections in the green
Yeah.
room studio. And so Adrian Clark, who is brilliant, works for the club all the time, a former player, Clarky was talking, and it was maybe like, say, Nigel Winterburn also there. So the camera was on them and they were live. So I'm just like sitting in my little bit waiting for them to come to me. And then, yeah, I look and there's just Henri looking through the door. And I was like, but obviously because they're
Yeah.
live in the same little, so I was like, and now, if it were now, again, this is where your confidence grows and with experience and everything. If it was now, I would have opened the door, gone, Henri, come in. I would have been like, Adrian, look, we've got a special guest. Like because that
Yeah.
would be so much better than anything that they were talking about. No offense to them at the time. But obviously I didn't know. I was young, I was inexperienced. I didn't think, I'm like, oh, we're live. I can't just open the door and try
You
and
like
chat to
interrupt it,
Henri.
yeah.
Yeah. But actually that would have been amazing content. And then afterwards, when I went out, because they obviously saw me being like, and they were like, "What were you doing?" And I was like, "Thierry Henry was looking in," and they were like, "Oh my god, you should have got him in on the show." And I was like, "Oh no."
Yeah, you
Um,
don't realise about it till after, but, oh,
no,
I love
God,
that.
no, no. But yeah, so I've kind of like we've crossed paths and stuff, and I've said hi to him before, but I'm gonna meet him properly one day.
Yeah, let's hope so. I mean, I had a similar situation when I did work experience at Talksport. Ali McCoist, you know the way he used
Oh,
to do.
legend.
Do you know the way he did? He used to do the show over Zoom because he doesn't really live in London.
Yeah,
I was there for a few days, and I was expecting him to be over Zoom. One day, he was in the studio with Laura, and you can watch what they're doing through the a window.
yeah,
And
yeah.
my dad as well, he loves Ali McCoist, and I was like, "Oh my god, that is Ali McCoist!" I was like texting him in the toilet, and Laura invited me into the back room, and I saw Riley McCoist and I was dead shy. I was like, oh my, and Laura was like, my friend Sophie's here. And I literally shook his hand and gave him a hug. You know, when you're just like a little
Oh my god.
excited little teenager, I was like,
Yeah.
and it was really nice actually because I did sound like a bit of a fangirl, I'm not gonna lie. I did say my dad really loves you. I got him to give my dad a ring. So he's really lovely.
Oh,
He's so lovely. It made my
so
dad's day because yeah, my dad's Scottish, Ali McCoist as well. So it's like you said, you've got in time, like you would change things differently. Like I think, I mean, obviously Laura did say to come in, but I wouldn't really go in, obviously. Or if he was in the room, it'd be hard to go up to people and say hi because
yeah, but
it's
Ali's amazing, isn't I mean, Laura's so wonderful as well, but like Ali, he's just the best, isn't he? He's so down to earth and like, oh, I love him so much.
he's
He's
so lovely as well
so
because
nice.
when you listen to his commentary, he's like a fan. He's just really enjoying talking about it, doesn't he? He's just lovely.
Yeah, he's brilliant, and he's one of those where like some of my friends who are into football, they'll be like, "Oh, like Ali McCoy's like, what's is he really nice?" Because there's always that fear, isn't it, that someone who
Yeah.
you love isn't actually that nice when you meet them. And I'm like, "Oh my god, he's the best thing ever. He's
You
just
was the
like
exact
great."
same when I met him, yeah.
Yeah.
It's hard because, like, people might be different to what they're like in person, but I think it can be. I think a lot of the time, if you like them on TV, you'll like them in real life, really.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Agreed.
And I did want to touch on this because we're sort of talking on anyway about, interviewing people that you might look up to. Like, I know, like you said, if you had a chance to interview like Henri, Bergkamp, Wenger, like in your head, because you love Arsenal, you would feel a bit like really excited. But when you obviously interview them, you do have to be composed and talk about whatever you're talking about with them. But for you, like when you have interviewed, say like a Tony Adams or whoever you're interviewing that you really love and admire, how have you managed to kind of compose yourself? Because I'm sure you probably do feel, a lot of adrenaline rush. You feel excited. You might feel a bit overwhelmed that you're actually interviewing someone you look up to. So for you, how have you kind of managed to kind of deal with these situations?
Oh, good question. I think I probably give chaotic energy when I first get like on a set. So I'd probably initially meet them and be quite like, "Ah," and like talk a million miles an hour and stuff. So that probably helps get out that sort of nervous energy or excitement. I think where I'm lucky is a lot of the content that I do is more fun
Yeah,
or relaxed or entertainment based rather than sit down, really intense post match debrief sort of interviews, right? So I suppose that gives me more leeway to actually bring that energy or excitement or whatever into the interview itself,
yeah,
which then the other person can kind of feed off of, and then it creates quite a nice fun atmosphere that's quite relaxed and like a bit more energetic, because obviously if you're sitting chatting to someone and they're like this and it's all very monotone and very
it's quite
you
hard.
well, you mirror that as well. So then straight away,
Yeah,
the tone of the whole thing gets brought down. But obviously, when you're talking about quite serious topics or straight football chat, there's only so much kind of banter and fun and whatnot that you can
yeah,
have with it. So the tone is always going to be a bit different, right? But that's where, yeah, I am quite lucky that a lot of the stuff I do is a bit more, I'd say, high energy. So you can kind of channel that excitement and sometimes nervousness and all of that into bringing a good kind of vibe to the set or to the person or into the room. So it's just a bit more fun for them as well. But yeah, it's just, again, it's just kind of with time you get used to it, and I suppose you kind of do get used to meeting these people who are like really cool and like have amazing jobs and they're stars or whatever, and you get a bit more cool with it. Like even now, although I'm banging on about like being like, oh my god, Thierry Henry, if I do work with him anytime in the near future, fingers crossed, put it out there and all that into the
yeah,
universe, um, I would be obviously I'd be a bit like, oh my God, I'm really like, love you. But I would just be really chilled. I'd
yeah.
chat to him like I'd chat to a mate.
A
I
normal
wouldn't be,
person, yeah.
yeah, I wouldn't kind of be like, oh my God. And I think people appreciate that as well, right? So, but yeah, I think I'm lucky with my sort of genre, I suppose, of
Yeah.
of sport presenting, that I can use any excitement and nervousness to my own advantage in a way.
Yeah, I think you kind of learn that. I think that when you're in your head, like you said, when you're ready to do a video, whether it's a live or recorded one, you're in your zone, you're focused on what you're going to talk about. And I think you forget about, if it's like a legend or Henri of what he's done for the club, you kind of want to focus like about not making mistakes, about making sure you're doing the right thing. So I completely get that. And I do hope you kind of Henri on one day. That would be incredible.
Me too.
And I did want to talk about your job because obviously, like you said, you didn't always work at Arsenal, but obviously at the moment you are doing that. And I did want to ask you about that. For you, obviously, you are doing an incredible job, and it's probably like a dream what you're doing, being there. What would you say your favorite aspect of your job is?
Ooh. My favorite. It is obviously very cool, and a massive perk to be able to go to games and, like I said, watch the Newcastle game pitch side and have that sort of access. So obviously growing up as an Arsenal supporter,
Yeah.
that is a really cool part and perk of the job, and being one of their presenters, of course. So that's obviously amazing. Um, I I really like being able to chat to the players, which I've been able to do more recently, because for the kind of past year or so, we weren't actually getting that much access to players, which I know sounds a bit strange because we work for the club. So that's been really fun recently, actually, to be able to
Mhm.
just chat to them, because we all see how well they've come across, and with the Amazon documentary and all of that, right? But it's really nice to just get a bit more of a personal level and friendship going with them, which is really cool. I love on the Breakdown Live, so the show that I'll host on match days, that we now have supporters in the box with us, where we film, like in the studio. So especially when the game's really, really good, we scored a couple of goals, everyone's buzzing. It's just really cool to be doing my job and like presenting and stuff, but then being able to have like these fellow gooners in the room, and us kind of, as part of my job, literally just being able to be like, how amazing was that? How are you feeling? Like, guys, you must be absolutely buzzing, like this, that, and the other. Like, that's really cool to actually just, it feels more like at points you're just like in a pub with your mates chatting about the game.
Yeah.
And that's what's really nice about that role that I have at Arsenal. But yeah, of course, like one of the really, really cool things is being able to be at Emirates, be at Colney, the training ground, and like I met the dog.
Oh,
That was on my bucket list. I literally, me at Colney a few weeks ago, walked in. I was like, right, God, where's the dog? And they were like, what?
yeah,
It's
you
like,
need to meet him.
Win. I'm
Oh,
here. Yeah, cool. The players
I
are there,
love
Saka
that.
in the corner. Yeah, whatever. But where is Win? Um, Bless her, sweet angel. So
I
yeah,
love
it's
that.
just
I wouldn't
like,
stop hugging the dog.
yeah. Oh my God, her fur was
Oh.
lovely. But being in and around it is just amazing when it's your club, isn't it? That's a
Yeah,
lot of
it's a lovely
people's
thing.
dream.
I
Yeah.
think there's a lot of good things, like you said, you meet people that if you didn't do the job, you wouldn't have ever have met. It's like, it is a dream and it's lovely to see you do it. And I think, like you said, you did have a bit of luck. I think sometimes you've got to have that, but I do think you're there because of how hardworking you are. And I think you're a natural at presenting. And I
Oh.
think it's just for me as a woman, I think it's really lovely to see, like you said, for you growing up, there weren't as many female presenters. And I think we're really starting to see that now. And I did want to kind of go on to talk a bit about that because I know with social media it can be a difficult place, and I just would love you to tell us a bit about with presenting. Have you had a few difficult moments of, it might have been sexism or it might just be genuinely, have you managed to, or have you had quite a lot of love as well? Just talk to us a bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, look, social media is a funny old place. We all know that. I have been fairly lucky, touch wood, up until now anyway, that I generally have had quite a positive experience on
Yeah.
social media. Um, People can be really lovely and kind, and say really sweet things that make you feel good, of course. But obviously, there's been, being a female working in sport, obviously, that's come with some level of, mean comments or whatnot. But I think for me, I don't read it. So if I do a Sky Sports show and they put clips of it on YouTube, I will
Yeah.
never ever read the comments. But
Hmm.
that's because I learned the hard way by reading the comments the first
Yeah.
time I went on it a few years ago, and just being like, well, that's depressing. And you kind of quickly learn that on things like that,
Yeah.
people are often not going to comment something like really positive. It's usually the people commenting that are commenting because they have something negative to say. So the first time I looked through the comments, it was because I kind of, you're curious, right,
Yeah,
to
you
know
get
what people are
intrigued by it.
saying.
Yeah.
You're curious, but also maybe there is some constructive criticism in there, which then great, cool, why not? You know, I'm always learning anyway. A lot of us are always wanting to learn and improve. But when it's just like, get back in the kitchen, or I don't know, whatever. And don't get me wrong, there'd obviously be the odd, like, creepy, nice
Yeah.
one that's, you know, positive, but it's positive in terms of like, I would, or she's fit or something. You're a bit like,
It's
okay,
just a bit embarrassing. It's just like, why do
thank you,
people
but
comment that? Yeah,
yeah, and you're a bit like, what about like everything I was talking about? Are we gonna are any of us gonna
ignore it.
comment on
Yeah,
that, or are we just gonna talk about my appearance, whether it's in a positive or negative way, and whether I should be kind of allowed to talk about football or be in a kitchen? Like, it's and so after that, I was like, right, cool. Lesson learned. Never reading the comments again. And don't get me wrong, I can laugh about it now, but in the moment, it's not
yeah,
nice. And although you might read loads that are really nice, and then there might be one that's mean, it's only that one that you care about, that you think about, and it stays with you for a bit. So I've kind of learned the hard way to just not read comment sections on things. So to be honest, I probably get a lot more abuse than I know, because I don't
I
look
think it's
for it.
better not knowing, really, isn't it?
100%. And I've had the odd person like at me directly in on like a tweet or something, or X, whatever we call it now. But generally, I think that's where I'm quite lucky, is I've not had a ton of like directed abuse where people at me. They might reply to things, but I don't see it, because if someone's not atted me, then I'm none the wiser, and then that's fine. So I've been quite lucky
Yeah,
for now. But again, like the bigger things that I do, and you know, I'm hoping my career's on an upward trajectory, and the more bigger broadcasting opportunities I get, or bigger brands I work with, or whatever, the more of a wider audience you're opened up to. And
hmm,
that obviously comes with more people, more opinions on whether you're good or not, or ugly, or, you know. So it will probably get worse in the next few years, I'm sure, and I will probably get
yeah,
more and more abuse. But I think you've just got to just try not to read it, and it can be easier said than done. Try not to look at it, try and ignore it. I mean, you look at the abuse that like Karen Carney has got, and Enia Luco, and gosh, I'm like, you've got to have such thick skin
yeah. It's sad
handle
to
that.
watch. Yeah, it's really
It's
sad. I think the
hard.
problem is, like, I was watching a bit about that, because I think Annie Luco is doing like a documentary, and
Yeah.
she was saying how, like, people don't realize that people are actually humans that are saying this. Like, people that say this to us or to Annie Luco, they'll just say it maybe because they think they're being funny, but they don't actually realize that there is
Hmm.
a real person with feelings. They're not a robot. And I
Yeah.
mean, I think for me, like, I think the sexist one, can be funny sometimes. I do kind of laugh at them, but I think if you think about it, it's fine to disagree. But when they take it that step, too far, it is quite difficult. But I think you do have to have thick skin, especially, like, I think the more things you do. I did a video of someone talking about sexism on the channel, and I think you will have to accept people will say things that are, if you're talking about important topics, people won't like that. And I think you've really got to be strong with it. And like you said, sometimes if you're happy with how you've done a show, if you're happy with how you've done a video, that is what matters, and it doesn't really matter what
Hmm.
other people think. Obviously, it is nice to see, the kind and positive messages. It does, it lifts you up. It's nice to
Yeah.
see. But I do think, sometimes if on a show that you've seen negative comments about yourself before, I think you're better not reading it, really, aren't you? Because it doesn't make you feel better at all.
No, it doesn't add anything to your life. It just makes you feel lousy for however long. So it's just not worth it. And also I kind of think the people whose opinions I really care about would be more, I don't know, like my peers in the industry, or my producer. Like, as long as they
Yeah.
think I'm good and did a good job and want to hire me again,
Yeah, that's the most
cool. But
important thing. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
And I did want to ask you a bit about, your job, because, people might want to do what you do one day, and whether that's obviously following your footsteps through YouTube, or, getting the job like you do. What advice would you give them?
I think, and literally, based on my own experience, right, you just need to put yourself out there.
Yeah.
Um, presenting's a difficult one, or it used to be. It's a bit different now because of your
Mm.
social media, YouTube, TikTok, like influencers can now cross over into presenting. Whereas when I started out, there wasn't really influencers. And when I first realized I wanted to be a presenter, I was like, well, how do I do it? I know that if you go to uni and you get a degree, you then can apply for jobs, you get interviews, and then you might get a job.
Mhm.
Even with drama school, at the end, you get agents that come and see the show, and then an agent will take you on, and then you get auditions. And with presenting, there wasn't anything like that, so it was really hard to, get into it. Now I think it is easier because of, this day and age with technology, socials and everything. But I think the main thing is, you know, no one's going to just come and knock on your door one day and be like, "Hello, I've seen you in the street and you have good energy," and that's never going to happen, of course. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, with presenting, there aren't just jobs online that are advertised, or that's just not, it doesn't really happen, does it? So presenting, I would say, is you've got to put yourself out there, start
Mm.
making your own content, be proactive, speak to people, reach out to people, like you've done with me. You've
Yeah.
obviously got Laura as well, on your YouTube, which is brilliant. Like, you know, reach out to people, try and really put yourself out there. I have always been quite bad at that, actually, which has probably hindered my career
Mm.
over the years. And look, I wouldn't change anything. I'm very happy with where I'm at right now. I'm very, very fortunate, of course. But I'm not very pushy. And I'm not saying go out there and be really pushy, but
Yeah, I get what you mean.
put yourself out there, try and meet people, try and maybe be a bit cheeky and ask for some favors, or say, can I come with you to this, or can I just pick your brains? Can we meet for a coffee and la la la? Um, but also make your own content, and put yourself out there, because then you've got something to actually show people when you say, hey, I want to be a presenter, and they go, okay, cool. Do you have anything of you presenting? You need to have something to then show what you can do, and you can do that yourself. You can make a little show reel, and there's enough stuff out there now that there are a lot more opportunities, I think, now than ever. So I just think go for it.
Yeah.
Start making content, try and be original if you can. But that's
Mhm.
something that I think people try and say quite often, that I think is quite hard to do, because YouTube and everything is so saturated. There are so many people doing things and making content now. So you might think you've got a great idea. Someone's probably already done it. So it's not necessarily trying to think of something that's the most original thing ever, because you might spend a year still trying to think of what that idea is. But we're all different. We all bring something different and unique to our channel, to an Instagram post or a TikTok or whatever. So I think find what your niche is, or something that you
Mm.
think you're really good at, and that you'd want to explore more of, and go down that route, and just make content, put yourself out there, try and speak to people, try and get to events,
Yeah.
or meet like-minded people. And then if you keep going, something will happen and will pay off eventually. And I do genuinely think that, like, I've had moments where, I thought, oh God, maybe it's just not going to happen for me. Like, maybe I was doing promo work alongside, when I first started at Arsenal, I was doing promo work at the O2. And I remember at points just thinking, oh gosh, like, maybe I'm going to have to do promo work forever, or get a like
Yeah.
real job, like a proper job, office job or something, like, but if you keep going, keep persevering, and you're good, that helps. I should add, it's not just, you've got to have some level of ability, right? But presenting, not that I'm saying it's really easy, because don't get me wrong, I think sometimes people think it looks easier than it is. But really, it's just talking. As long as
Yeah.
you've got a personality and that comes across, then I think, work hard, put yourself out there, and you can do it.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think, like we've said, I think, when you try things more and more, you do get more confident, and, you know what you're doing when you've done that. And it does look easy, probably, when you watch people presenting so well, and you think, it just looks because people are so natural at it, you just presume it'll be
Yeah,
easy. But
that's it.
I
If
have
someone's
learned,
good at their
yeah.
job, they make it look easy, and until you see someone who's really quite bad or really messes up, that's when you kind of go, "Oh, oh, okay."
Yeah, I know, because it must be hard, really, because I know when someone like Laura or Karen Carney's live, there'll probably be people in their ear telling them to
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
do something, and it actually is hard to kind of focus with all of that. So I think I completely agree. And I think as well, I think it's really good to ask people, not to be cheeky, but I do think, if you don't ask, you just won't know. So I think,
Mhm.
like you've just said, why not ask people in a polite way if they can help you out? So I completely agree with that advice. And I wanted to end this on the question that I think would be interesting to know. As I've had you on, I've had Laura, and I do want to get some more exciting guests. Who do you think you'd like to see on my channel?
Ooh. Well, okay, I might be going a bit bold here. I've never actually properly met her or worked with her, but Emma Hayes,
Oh
Chelsea
yeah,
manager. I
yeah.
mean,
I
like
think
she would be
I
wicked to interview.
Yeah, I think obviously at Chelsea she's done a great job, but I just think like her knowledge of football is just like out of this world. So
Oh.
yeah, I really love that. Thank you so much, and thank you for coming on today. I've actually really had a good laugh with you. I've really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Oh, me too. Thank you for having me. It's been lovely.
You're always welcome to come on, and I'm just really happy to have you on, and I hope those are watching this back as well have laughed through this with us and enjoyed this as well. And yeah, a big thank you for coming on. I hope you guys did enjoy the video. Do hit the like button and subscribe, and I shall see you in my next video. Bye.